welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to give folks a few more minutes to log on. We would love for you guys to turn on your cameras. And as we're waiting for folks to join us, if you could in the chat, just let us know which grade bands you affiliate with most: elementary, middle school, or high school. Thank you for joining us. We're super excited to get started in a few minutes. If you could turn on your cameras and then also in the chat, just add which grade bands you affiliate most with, elementary, middle school, or high school. We'll wait another minute to see if anybody else joins us last minute. Okay, well, we've got everybody into the Zoom meeting with us. Super excited for you guys to be joining us for the Big Sky Standards Real World Data webinar series. Today, we'll be covering the topic of taking the intimidation out of data through mathematics. Next slide. Just wanted a quick reminder, your host for this series is myself. I am the Director of Policy for Data Science for Everyone. My name is Samantha Leaf. And then we've got Lee Allen here, who is our Partners Manager for Data Science for Everyone. Katrina, who is the Mathematics Instructional Coordinator for Montana Department of Ed, and Amy, who is also here for the Professional Learning Manager for Montana Department of Ed. Next slide. And we have special guests here for you today, and I will let them introduce themselves. Mahmoud?
Uh, Hello, my name is Mahmoud Harding. I'm the Instructional Design Director at Data Science for Everyone, and I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon or evening, depending on your time zone.
And my name is Hannah Kurzweil. I'm the Community Manager for Data Science for Everyone, and I'm really excited to take the middle school group a little bit later on in this session.
Hi, I'm Christina Dance. I'm excited to be here with you all. I work at UCubed, a center at Stanford University, and our objective is to share the latest in math and data science research with teachers, and we create curriculum and professional development. We have a page on our site, ucube.org, that's dedicated to data science. So there's resources there for you for K-12. We also have a high school curriculum I'm a co-author of that's a year-long curriculum, but you're also welcome to take parts of it and use it. It's free online. So happy to be with you all, and I'll get to work more with the K6 folks, K5, I guess, today.
Thank you, Christina. Happy to have you and Hannah and Mahmoud joining us today. Mahmoud and Hannah are going to be taking over. Mahmoud, go ahead and to the next slide, and you guys can get started.
Okay, so for those of you that were at last year's, goodness gracious, it's been a long month. Last month's session, you may or may not have seen this graphic before. And depending on if you're new or not, you might be thinking, okay, I've looked at maybe some of the new learning progressions or the new academic standards that are kind of centered a little bit more around data science, and you're feeling a little intimidated or overwhelmed. And I just want to help alleviate some of that feeling, because I know as teachers, we have a lot on our plates and there's a lot to kind of juggle. And when it comes to just adding one more thing, you can be like, well, why am I doing this? So when we're talking about, especially in like maybe certain grade bands, computational thinking, statistical modeling, data visualizations, uh, you're like, uh, I don't really understand where this is going to fit in my classroom, or what is the expectation of me. And I just want to make sure that I'm meeting my kids where they're at, and also making sure that I'm getting them to where they need to go. Um, so that's what kind of this whole slide is about. It's really here to let you know that, one, you don't have to tackle all of that at once. And in fact, all of the data science learning progressions, and really most of like the data science skills that we have charted the course to figure out what's the most important, boils down into 5 core themes. And those things are here on this slide. And you're probably already weaving most of these into your teaching without even calling it data science necessarily. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage there and let us all start with something that might be familiar, and build from that foundation together. Because overwhelmingly, what I hope is that I have really good news for you today. One, the data science and incorporating data science education into your classrooms isn't going to be scary. It's not going to be foreign. You don't have to completely reinvent the way that you teach or what you're teaching. It's going to be largely familiar for some of the stuff that you've already done in your classrooms. You probably just didn't even realize it. So with that said, let's go first into telling stories that matter. This is one of the core key themes. And you're probably already doing this every single day. I'm going to think about, when you have your students sharing their science fair results, or you're writing a persuasive essay about wildlife conservation, or something that you're doing in your classroom, you're already teaching them to take information and turn it into a compelling narrative. But here's the tweak. So here's the what comes next. You want to have them start to do that with a data point. So think of maybe phrasing, I think we should protect grizzly bears, to, did you know that Montana's grizzly population dropped by 60% between 1850 and 1975? Let me tell you why that mattered and what's happened since. So when you just have that little tweak in how you're talking about something, that's kind of taking it from what you might already be doing to really elevating it to the data science progressions that you really want to start instilling in your students. The second thing, and I'm sure that your students are already doing this, is questioning everything. When I was in the classroom, I noticed right away that students are natural skeptics, especially middle schoolers. I think they're tough questioners. And now that I am a toddler mom, I'm realizing that you just really probably never get a break from the skepticism, but that's good, right? Like, she's asking me, why is the sky blue? And I'm like, oh my goodness. And she's like, why? And you kind of keep diving down and down and down. And as a parent, I will be real. I kind of get to a limit on how many whys I can answer, but we do want to instill this natural curiosity and this like relentless curiosity almost within our students to be good data scientists in the classroom. So we already know they have the superpower. What do we want then to do the next step in terms of like enhancing the skepticism? So really what we want to do is, when they ask, how do you really know that's true? The data science spin to this is, when they encounter some type of statistic or claim, whether it's about national economic trends or whatever it is that happens to be in discussion, you want them to, instead of say, oh, that's not true, or where'd you get that, which are still good questions, but you want to get them to start asking, what data would we need to verify this? You're not changing their critical thinking, you're just pointing it towards some evidence. And trust me, from my experience, they'll run with that just like my toddler runs with why. The third thing that I'm going to talk about is making it real. And I'm sure that you guys work pretty relentlessly in your classrooms on like, how do I make this content relevant to my students? I know that I've seen so many good examples of teachers doing this all across the country. I'm sure it's no different. There's unique challenges in Montana versus, New York City. And so it's really nice to be able to give them something that matters to them. Um, the one thing that I would like to give you permission to do to kind of take it one step further in terms of what you're already doing to what you should bring in the classroom is kind of giving you permission to let go of the reins a little bit. So, you may have a more structured lesson that you want to measure average snowfall throughout the month of December. And while that's great, and that's a great starting point to figuring out how to collect your own data and some measurements and a bunch of different skills, it'll be more meaningful for them if you use kind of a base example that maybe you're modeling, um, and you let them kind of do the same steps that you're doing, but with something that matters to them. So whether that's about their families or local history, um, finding ways to make abstract concepts more tangible to them is really important. And once they start getting those data science skills, then they continue to branch off and riff off of what they're learning more and more, and then they just further enhance those skills. So what I'm saying is it's okay if you let your kids investigate social media or TikTok trends, right? Even if that you don't think that that's quite as important as what you wanted them, just the direction they wanted to steer them in. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to create this like portrait of a graduate on what skills will they need to be successful and have a little bit of agency in their own futures. And that's really what we're building here. And then another thing, asking better questions. So I'm sure that you are already trying to do this in your classroom. So I guess the one real kind of step forward I want to talk about is like bringing in the evidence, which I've already hit on, and just moving beyond like yes, no questions to a little bit of a deeper inquiry. So helping them craft questions that can be measured is the ideal. Instead of saying, is climate change affecting elk migration patterns? You can say, how have our local growing seasons changed over the past 30 years that have impacted the ecosystems that support elk, or gathering temperature data, or things that are actually measurable that we can start making insightful connections on. And then finally, the last thing that we want to start working with is kind of making it not seem so scary to work with complex information. And obviously, the learning progressions are scaffolded, and you create complexity over time. But it is important that by the time they're graduating, students understand how to compare multiple sources against each other, that they can analyze a graph in a textbook, or they can analyze a graph that they're seeing in the media, or that one of their peers has made. And they're able to like talk about conflicting viewpoints, or what visual might be leaning them towards one insight versus another insight. So in order to do this, it's really important that as we, scaffold their skills over time, that we're giving them messier real world data sets instead of just like perfect things that you're already doing. Making sure that they're able to work with tools, and you'll see a few tools today highlighted between the elementary, middle school, and high school breakout sessions that are easily incorporated in classrooms and allow them to get some really uh, great visualizations very quickly and allow them to start making insights. So hopefully what I've conveyed is that this isn't about mastering like complex standards overnight, or becoming a computer programmer, or even becoming a data scientist, right? We're not trying to create data scientists by incorporating data science education in the classroom. We are just trying to equip students with these skills that will make them better democratic citizens moving forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Hannah. That was perfect. And so, what I want you to think about is imagine that you were with Lewis and Clark as they said, I wonder what's over there. And they're traveling across the unknown Americas. They had to have something that they used to focus them and guide them on their journey. And we're going to use the same sort of metaphor as those two explorers did when they took on that challenge. What is our North Star? So when we think about our North Star, what we want to think about is by graduation. And that's key because we're not saying a student can pick this up in a semester, in an 8-week course, in one project, in a summer session. We're saying K through 12, there's a progression of learning and skill building that by the time a student graduates, they should be able to investigate systematically, create narratives, so they have to be good presenters and storytellers. They have to question claims and identify bias. Not saying that if it doesn't agree with me, I push it to the side. Whether it agrees with me or not, what is the source? Who was this information collected from? And is this information being presented with any way to try to direct me to think something that may not be the truth? And by doing that, we hope that when students graduate, they'll make ethical decisions, even beginning with the night of graduation when they decide to go and hang out with their friends and communicate, communicate, communicate. Whatever industry they end up in, whatever sort of personal or passion project they work with, communicating is going to be key. And to do all of these things by graduation, we have developed a set of national learning progressions. So, what that means is by looking at what competencies students should develop across the grade bands, we now know what that complete student at graduation will look like when it comes to things like dispositions and responsibility as it relates to data, understanding how to create and curate data, understanding how to take data that's raw and analyze it and make models, how to interpret the results from those models, and how to interpret problems so that we can build systematic ways to analyze and model data. And how can we communicate our findings to others, whether we're doing it through speaking, whether we're doing it through a visualization, or whether we're doing it through writing. And all of these work together to build that student that we want to see by graduation. So then what are these learning progressions? So the learning progressions at a glance at each level, in the elementary school level, what we want students to think about is, yeah, data and information can answer questions. Can I sort things that are similar? Can I create a simple visualization to represent the things that I sorted? Do I understand how data can be collected in a fair way or not? At the middle school level, we want students to begin working with messier data and larger data sets, questioning sources, trying to think about how can we identify bias, thinking about visualizations that are multi-variable, not just one single variable. How can we do it with two, maybe even three variables? And is there a way that a particular community issue can be connected to data that I work with in school, or that I work with as a volunteer, or that I'm interested in just as a citizen of this country? And finally, that graduations type student that we want to build can start conducting independent investigations. So I want you to think about the way these look as stepping stones. You can't wait until someone's in the 11th grade and say, hey, you're going to do an independent research project. How have you built them up to make them successful? How have you built them up to use advanced statistical methods if they don't understand basic probability, if they don't understand statistical measures? What I'm saying to all of you is that everybody's got to pick up their side of the table. K5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. And if we do that, What we can do is put them in situations where they can work independently, where they're able to create sophisticated models, and engaging in that process can help them become civically engaged through using data and the skills that they built throughout K-12. So then, how does complexity grow? Like it kind of grows naturally, right? So, like when you're a kid, complex isn't the same as when you are in middle grades, and it's definitely not the same when you're an adult. So, we think about complexity as data gets messier, and that's good. So, when we start students off, we don't give them the messiest, most complicated thing to work with and say, have at it. We build their skills up so that when they engage in it, there's just enough cognitive and skill friction where they have to struggle, but it's productive and not overwhelming. We get bigger and bigger pictures from data. And the way that we can do that is we start maybe in our classroom and then maybe in our community, maybe national or regionally, maybe nationally, and maybe globally. All kinds of data students should be experiencing in this journey from K-12. When we start off, numbers and categories are things that are appropriate. But as we progress and we gain more skills, maybe we can analyze text. Maybe we can analyze sound. Maybe we can analyze information collected from experiments. And finally, once you do all of those things, you are that student graduating who can connect the dots. So if you think about the way a student, not us, it's practitioners, a student perceives what they learn in class. If I go to class on Monday and the teacher says we're going to do section 1.2, then Tuesday we're going to do section 1.3, Wednesday we do section 1.4, and then we're going to have a quiz. Where's the connection? We have to have a means to connect the content to things that are real enough so that they can engage in things that develop those transferable skills. And we believe that data is that connective tissue. So instead of lesson 1.2, we talk about, well, why are lines important in research? Can we change the way someone may perceive a group of numbers if we change the bins in a histogram? Is it possible to make a generalization based on the data we collected when we have 4 different groups represented? That's how we form connections using the connective tissue of data. And what I want us to come to grips with is that data science enhances all of those mathematical thinking skills that we want. It's not just statistics, it's graphing, proportional reasoning, algebraic thinking, problem solving. We tell students these are the things we want them to develop, but we sometimes construct our instruction based on the way that a textbook is laid out. And it's not necessarily wrong, but we need something to bring it all together, to shorten the distance between the dots, to make the connections stronger and easier for students to get to. And data science is that thing that makes mathematics more relevant, and engaging. And when I say relevant, I want to be clear. I don't mean relevant because it just happened last night at the VMA Awards or Sunday night, whenever that happened. No, relevant can mean something that happened in their lives, something that happened in the past, something that may happen in the future. And sometimes you don't know if it's relevant until you investigate it and discover something that you have a question about. So relevancy is a very broad term. And You're not on a journey alone. We're to help you. So how do we do it? K2, data storytelling with class surveys. You want to do it? Let's tell the story of our graph to a partner. We want to question data and identify surprises. So we asked, was there something that surprised you? What are three possible explanations? Notice that the way these questions are formatted, it gives students permission to guess whether or not they're right or wrong. And we need to build in the ability for students to take risk academically. Working with messy data and community issues. Could this information be helpful to people in my community, in my region, globally, in my school, in my family? And that independence can only happen when we build up all of these things through these progressions. And we can think about when decisions are made from this information, who is affected and how are they affected? And with that, we head to the breakout room. And so when you go to the breakout rooms, what I want you to do is perceive through the eyes of the student. Bring that curiosity, that ability to take academic risk, question, and jump right in. And when you leave, try to think about one thing that you can try between this week and the end of next week. And I know you're like Montana's got a lot of cool teachers. So when you try the thing, just make like a TikTok video, it'll go viral. Then you got it.
Okay, so we're gonna let you self-select the groups. There's gonna be elementary, middle school, high school. Go ahead and click the one that is most relevant for you, and we'll see you in there.
Okay. So my goal is really to share some resources with you and like Mamu said, some activities you could take with you right away. All these come from, you can find on our UCubed website as well, the things I'm sharing with you. But I want to start with something called Data Talks. It's a nice way to introduce students to data visuals. And I think students are sometimes surprised at how creative they can be. So we'll start off with one right away. The first, just since there's so few of us, let's just come off mic when we have ideas, but just take 1 minute first and look at the graph. And as you're looking, think about what do you notice? What do you wonder? And what story does the graph tell? So before you share, I'll just give you a minute to look and think. So go ahead and as you have ideas, anything you notice or wonder, or what story it's telling.
I wonder what the white is.
That's great question. What's a
Mhm.
white?
That was mine too, Jen.
Was it? And I
Great,
wonder
what
if it's about
else?
hand washing.
Oh, you're wondering if this is about hand washing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I meant to give you the title. It is about, this is not a slow reveal graph.
Oh, I see it
This
down.
is,
I didn't even see the bottom. I just
uh,
was stuck on the
it's titled
colors.
Most Often Missed
Ah.
Areas While Washing Hands. So
Gotcha.
yes, it is about hand washing. So you figured it out just by
Mhm.
observing. Anything else?
So I wonder how the pinky fingernail gets washed, but the pinky doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, specifically this here. How is this happening?
Mhm.
It makes me wonder if we could do a reenactment to figure out how people are washing their
Yeah.
hands, like touch all the spots. Hi. Anything else you're noticing?
I wonder, like thinking elementary, and we have a bunch of sick kids, like what it would look like from kindergarten to fifth grade, if it differs.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a
how it
great
differs.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if you could do like a hand washing day theme associated with this
Oh, yeah.
graph.
You just have to find some kind of paint that like changes color as it fades or something and see if you could, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is such a thing, but that could be kind of neat.
Well, they make those red things for your teeth, right? To see where you don't brush your teeth.
Yes.
Maybe
Mhm.
we could invent something. There
There
we
you
go.
go. Absolutely.
Yeah. Or we could figure out a graph for teeth, see if there's a
Yeah.
data graph for teeth.
There you go. I like
Um,
that. And I wonder if that would change over the grades as well.
Right.
So we have a series of data talks like this on our site. You can also make your own data talks. Here's an image of one a student made, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this project. This was 48 hours of thank yous, where the student looked at who said thank you, what if they were in person, text, or phone call, and was it me or another person sharing? So that's another interesting, just all these interesting ways to share data. So our goal for data talks is to help students learn to read data visuals. One of the things that Mahmoud and Hannah talked about was asking questions. So a lot of times you all ask the question, like, what is the white? So kind of being inquisitive about the data and also making claims based on what you're seeing. Like, this is what I'm seeing here because of this data visual. I think we're missing this part of the hand. And so the creativity piece, I think, is really important. A lot of times in elementary years, we teach with a bar graph or a dot plot. My daughter's in 6th grade right now, and she came home with a bunch of, stem and leaf plots and dot plots, and that's great. Those are great too, but also so that students understand there's a lot more different ways to represent data. One of my favorites is actually a Steph Curry graph as well that I don't have with me on is shooting and where he shoots shots. It's a nice way to introduce a variety of contexts, so it can be interdisciplinary. It doesn't have to be you can use it for any different content. Hand washing is like you're getting at this mathematical data, statistical data through the context of washing hands. We also use them to assess students formatively. So before you enter something, you can understand what is it that students are coming in understanding about this way of illustrating data or this context. It's so often we find students kind of come alive, students who may not talk normally are willing to share about this. It kind of is a nice way to reach different students and give them access to content, which is the inviting inclusive pedagogy. So I have links at the end of this time together, and Lee Ellen, maybe you can give me a 5-minute warning too when I've got 5 minutes so I can. So one of the things we talk about at UCubed, and you'll see a lot of different places, is the data science process. And this is kind of a cycle of the progression of doing a data science talk. And so a lot of our tasks, starting from kindergarten up to high school, we take students on this journey of the data science process. And so I'm going to share with you a project we do with students that goes through this process. And basically what Hannah shared were all aspects of this process. So the first we think of is formulating an investigative question. So what question is it we're thinking about? Maybe you give students a question, maybe students pose the question themselves. Then there's a process of collecting, finding data, organizing the data, finding ways to clean the data. From there, you're going to take the data and model and analyze it. What can I take away from this? What are my findings? What are ways I can represent what I have, whether it's in this hand graph, or some other format to model and analyze what I'm finding. And then finally, interpret and communicate. So what are my takeaways from this? And so from that hand graph, I'm thinking maybe we all need to work on the other tips of our fingers besides the pinky, or maybe we start doing pinky shakes instead of full handshakes, because those are the cleanest parts. So I'm going to walk you through one project where we do this. This project comes out of two women, one living in New York and one in London. And they decided to share postcards with each other. And each week they collected data on a different theme. And then they created visuals to represent the data they collected. So this visual right here is it's sending to Georgie. So I'm trying to remember who the other one is, but we'll see in a minute. It's a week of complaints. So collecting information about all different types of complaints for the whole week, tracking all who was complaining, what was I complaining about, and then creating a visual to represent it. So they have all these unique, interesting ways of representing data. The other person, is Stephanie. And so she did the same thing. She collected complaints, but she represented it in musical notes. And so all the data that she collected about her complaints are here in this musical notes visual. So what we did is turn this into a project with their permission. And we had students walk through the data science process for this, doing Dear Data. So we give students, we say, okay, what are you interested in? What do you want to collect data around? They get to pick. This was, again, something that Mahmoud mentioned, of students can pick what they're interested in exploring. They figure out how they're going to collect data. So they make a little data collection plan, like how long will I collect data? What type of data will I collect? What are the things I'm collecting around? Is it numbers? Is it going to be categories? Then they think about how they're going to represent that data and make their visual, and they get to do whatever they want to create their visual and represent it in a really unique way. And then kind of interpret it and share it with folks. Like, what were my takeaways from this? What were my findings? And then their visual is also their form of communication. So I wanted to share some of these projects of different students we've had over the years. This student, it was during COVID, and they were doing school online, and this is the activity, their dog, collecting interactions with their dog and their dog's reactions over over the course of a day. So it runs from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And she collected all these different interactions she had with her dog. And then she had this way of communicating it with color and dots, and every little piece on this is a different way of communicating. This was, yes, Lee Ellen.
Christina, sorry, I just wanted to let you know we're at the 5-minute mark.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. This was one where someone collected how much water they were using, or when they were using water over the course of a day. So, and communicated the different ways water was used over time. I showed you this 48 hours of thank yous. This was someone keeping track of their Spotify consumption and then sharing that visually. This one is fun. This was what type of music did I listen to for a week? So they recorded genres, and let's see. Oh, and time. So each petal represented time, and then the look of the flower was the genre they were listening to at the time. So this was over in a data science course we did. So just curious, kind of throw out some ideas. What are some things you think your students might be interested in exploring? Are there some things you think they might, or that you would be interested in exploring?
This is so fun. I love
Oh,
this.
great.
Thank you for like, I'm like, this would be so great to do.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
little kids. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking about like my kindergartners could totally grasp onto this and it would be
Yes.
awesome. And I'm thinking maybe like playground games or I
Yeah.
don't know,
Mhm.
anything. They love everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done this basically kindergarten up through college students, like Stanford students have done this. So
Hmm.
it's really fun how versatile it is. A lot of folks have chosen like my phone.
Yeah.
How many times am I picking up my phone? Why am I picking up my phone? How am I using my phone? Of course,
Yeah.
kindergartners, we're hoping that's not an issue, but um,
I could see them doing things like, how many times did I pet my dog or pick
yeah,
up my
yeah.
cat? Things like that.
Yes. Who
Yeah.
did I talk to?
Hmm.
Jesse, I saw you came off mute. Was there any idea you wanted to share? Not to put you on the
No,
spot.
it's okay. Just because today, so if I did it in class, I would be very interested how many times I hear my name.
Oh.
And if it's for a
Mm.
legit question or if it's for
Yes.
something totally off topic.
Yes. You could track types of questions over a day.
Mhm.
How many questions? Yes, that would be
Yeah.
fascinating.
I bet they
Um,
would enjoy seeing yours in addition to seeing theirs as well,
yeah.
Jesse. I bet that would be neat.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we do have a video here that I don't have time to share, but this was a school that did a data day and across K-8 for the day, they collected data on where students felt safe and where they didn't feel safe. And they had all sorts of different representations of it across K-8 and lesson plans. So I'm not going to share that with you, but I am going to share, this will be in your links. So the top link up there is our link to Data Talks. You can go on there and put in the grade level and find Data Talks. The next link is, it's all on YouTube, but there's a data science one that has tasks. So you can click, if you scroll down a little bit, you click the grade and it has some tasks for you at grade levels. So there's the link to the data task and to the data day that I was just mentioning. There's a K-10 unit. We also have a high school course, which I mentioned. And if you're interested in just getting updates about if we have new tasks coming up, you can sign up there. There's an email for any data science questions, or you can just email me directly. So I meant to have some Q&A and we have exactly 1 minute. So any questions?
I just want to say thank you. This is like I've done math talks and number talks, and I've never even crossed my mind to do data science talks. So it just like seamlessly
Oh,
fits into
great.
that routine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank
And
you
if
for
you've
doing
done
that. And
those
those
before, then
resources will
you
be
can,
great.
great. If you've done those, your students will just naturally pick up on that.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to ask about or? I was trying so hard to end on time.
We incorporated number talks when we first started them at school in our parent back to school night and had the parents do
Uh-huh.
it. And it was so interesting how terrified they were to get the
Yeah,
wrong answer, so they wouldn't even try. And I just think like this is another thing that would be really great to introduce parents to. Like you can just say
definitely.
whatever you want, right? Right or
Mhm.
wrong. Yeah.
Right,
Or
Yeah.
you're just looking.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember when I first started doing number talks with my kids, they were always I'd never done it before, like that mental math. And so I learned so much
Yeah.
from my students because it just hadn't come naturally to me. Um, I feel like the same is true for data. We did a data talk with dice where it was like rolling two dice and the two dice are side by side. So it's like all the different sums you can get. And that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting what we learned about how students thought about numbers and how you could roll them. And it was right before we went
Mm-hmm.
into a little unit on probability. And we had kind of assumed all our students understood probability, understood how it worked. And that was really helpful learning like, oh, wait, this isn't something like we need to go back and start
at a little different place, given what we learned from that.
Right. Yeah, and I think somebody mentioned it, I think it was Mahmoud said, like, it just is so accessible to all the kids, no matter what level they're at. They can feel successful at math,
Yeah.
which I think is a
Yeah.
great foundation too. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea that math can be creative and visual. I mean, there's a whole
Right.
field of mathematics that's completely visual, like topography, and it's all pictures that
Mhm.
look like art. So
Yeah.
I like that about data too, is like all these visuals can represent something.
Mhm.
So you're a kindergarten teacher?
That's my
Okay.
wheelhouse. Now I'm at OPI, but I still have
Okay.
I have a love for the little guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be great to talk further about kind of ways of integrating it with kindergarten. I think it's kind of the
Yeah.
area that teachers a lot of times say, like, well, what about for kindergarten? How do we do it with kindergarten? It's probably the area I
Yeah.
have the least experience myself. I mean, I've worked a lot in elementary,
And
but
right. I think it's the easiest because they have no inhibitions, right? They're
mm,
just naturally curious and willing to share, and and the things that they come up with are surprising. So I would love to do one of those data cycles with a class of 5-year-olds and see what they can come up with.
yeah, if you do that, be
Um,
sure to share it. I'd
yeah,
love to see
I will.
what you
Yeah.
do.
Okay, welcome. This is the middle school room. Some would call it the most, certainly the stinkiest room typically in the building, but today the most fun room. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to ask for a lot of participation from y'all. And I think because I'm on a weird desktop that is not my actual desktop, it's going to be very hard for me to actually see you guys while I'm sharing this. So you might have to actually speak up. You can't just give me like thumbs up, okay? Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
You're giving thumbs up. It's like
Yes.
they've already fit. Okay, so what I'm going to do with y'all today is essentially just go through, if you were here last month, a couple of things that we talked about last month, some really just fun ways to kind of start a lecture, kind of get the kids' brains thinking, but like thinking in a fun way, like, oh, this isn't math class or whatever is keeping them from lunch. It is going to be a fun time, and then I'm going to go into a really useful tool that you can utilize in your classrooms, depending kind of on a technology constraints, whether or not you have computers for your students or not, or if you can like get a computer lab that you can go into. But the first thing we're going to do is have some fun. So you may or may not have seen the slow reveal graphs from last month, but I love slow reveal graphs because one, literally you cannot get the answer right. Like there is no way that you show this to a group of students of any age and they're able to tell you the exact answer. So kind of like Mahmoud was saying, it really like encourages that spirit of taking risk and it's okay to be wrong. And sometimes I won't even show the whole graph. I'll like get caught in a tangent that a student has said, and I'll go down that rabbit hole because I'm like, you know what, that's a better graph than the one that this one depicts. But the first thing, you take it off and they're just looking at this. And I'm always soliciting for what could this be? What could it be?
Like different types of lunches people bring. If they have hot lunch, cold lunch, if they have a sandwich every day. I'm hungry.
Yes, allowed to play into. Some things that I've gotten with this type of graph that you can choose depending on your relationship with your students or where you're at in the semester is like recognizing that certain types of graph reveal certain types of data. So, Amy just popped out with categories, which I'm like, yeah, this is a categorical graph. And the reason why I know that, right, is if I'm looking even without something on the x-axis, they are not touching. This isn't linear, right? So if someone were to say, my interest in listening to Hannah over the course of this breakout session, right? I'd be like, haha, funny, but not entirely accurate of this type of graph, right? Okay, and then you slowly give them, a little bit more information. If we're thinking of the y-axis, and now we know that this is the number of US households in millions, great. Amy's guess could still hold up here in terms of categories of lunches. I still like that. You might get some that you can like realize how they've knocked off. Like, oh, we were talking about, I don't know, something to do with number of cyber trucks that we saw. Well, this y-axis isn't going to relate to, hopefully, the number of cyber trucks that we're seeing. We can give them another piece of information, the title, most popular pets in the US. And you can also, with slow reveal graphs, like I've switched, if I'm downloaded one, I hadn't created it myself, I switch sometimes the types of data or the data that I want it to show right off the bat. So for this one, like most popular pets in the US, now we can have a good discussion of like, well, what do we think this is? And then we can really rile up the cat versus dog people is ideally what we want from this. Is just an all-out war in the room. What are they thinking? And then last but not least, you can give them, the actual, you can do them one at a time if you want, which is what I've done, so they can kind of guess. You can give it to them all at once, but it's just a really fun way to kind of start your class, get them thinking. Love slow reveal graphs. Last thing is I do typically put labels on them at the very end because I like when they have labels, but you don't have to if you don't want to. The other thing that you might not have seen, but that I love is a game called Charty Party. Geniuses. I don't even know who came up with this, but I love them. The second I saw this, I bought it for myself. There is an adult version, or I guess a high school version / college version that has a little bit more older topics. This is middle school appropriate version. By golly, I'd hate to accidentally switch out those decks and bring my other one into a middle school classroom. But it's just a great way for them to look at graphs, and they have all different types of graphs: line, scatter, bar chart, histograms. And it's essentially like apples to apples, where one student, whoever's choosing, gets to flip over the chart, like whatever the graph is. In this case, we have intensity of friendship, and then everyone looks through. You can give them however many cards. Maybe you want to start them out with 3 because they're not really that used to looking at a visual like this. Maybe you can give them up to 10. It's kind of up to you. But they are trying to submit a y-axis that they think is going to be the funniest for that student. So it's a great way to build rapport. It's also just a really fun way to like make sure that that they're getting more comfortable with understanding how data should show up in graphs. So for this one, I had a group of students. I did it in small groups, and we have intensity of a friendship, and you have dollars paid, or dollars you'd have to be paid to let your mom view your text message history. And I think, yeah, maybe the closer you are, if you're BFFs, maybe I wouldn't want my mom in middle school to see what I'm talking to my BFF about. Desperate need to be the first to know about a new rumor. That's pretty standard middle school necessity to be a BFF. How much people laugh at your jokes, right? So these are all funny, and they can go ahead and choose. Here's another example. Mile running time. You can see some submissions. This is a larger group that did this one. And it's just kind of interesting to see what the kids think about. Percentage of your body weight that's hair gel. Okay, apparently, if you are really fast, you're wearing a lot of hair gel. That stacks up, actually. I probably would agree with that one. This is a really fun one. I don't want to spend too much time on Charty Party. Let's do one more. Favorite food. How seriously you take the threat of forest fires. Okay, that person thinks that those that have kale as their favorite food take the threat of forest fires pretty seriously. I probably agree with that. Ability to use one of those old-timey circular phones, also great. So this is a really fun game. I'm sure you can create these yourself, but it's actually also relatively cheap. I know teachers always are forced to like spend money out of their own pockets, but I feel like you can go to your department head and say, hey, can I spend $15 on Charity Party? This is going to get my kids really amped, and it does. One other thing that I want to talk about is the Dear Data project. You may or may not have heard of this. This one I just recently started really, really enjoying, mostly because it was important to me to reach the students in my math classroom that told me I'm not a mathematician or math is my least favorite, right? Like, and bringing those more maybe people that have labeled themselves as creatives and showing them that like, no, that creativity is welcomed in our math classroom. We love it. And so you can look more into the Dear Data project. Here's a few fun postcards, but essentially you just give them the task of 1 week collecting data on one question. Here's a couple examples you can see. I'm going to bring a bigger one up just so that we can read it a little bit easier. This one was just 48 hours of thank yous. And you can see like the choppy scriggles is I said thank you to someone, whereas the curly Q scriggles was someone said thank you to me. The color is whether it was in person or over text or over the phone. And then what was the relationship? Did that a stranger say it to me, my boyfriend, my friend, a family member? And so this is a really great way to show how data can be shown in really unique and honestly like quite beautiful ways, right? This to me is a piece of art. And as someone who in my own youth would have been like, I'm not an art person. This also would have brought me out of my comfort shell, being very at home in a math classroom to be like, if my teacher had asked me to do this, I'd have been like, gosh darn it. But this is a really great way to level the playing field and make sure everyone feels welcomed and included in the classroom. So with that, I think the last thing that I want to kind of talk about is this tool. You may or may not have used it. It's called CODAP, which stands for Common Online Data Analysis Platform. Love this. Could not speak more highly about CODAP, especially for the middle age groups. I'm going to pop open just a new screen. So the URL is codap.concord.org. It was created by the Concord Consortium. The Concord part of this URL is important. If you just do codap.org, you get to, I think, some like humanitarian site, which is, I'm sure, still a very great cause, but not one that I'm going to be talking about today. And you just click Launch CODAP. They have a ton of tutorials in here, a ton of lesson plans in here. But if you're new to CODAP, you can create a new document if you have a data set you want to analyze, but they also have a ton of examples. I'm going to do roller coasters because I know that middle schoolers love roller coasters because they still have enough inner ear fluid that it doesn't make them sick. And it just pops up with a bunch of things. It gives you this thing from Esteem that created and curated this data set, some tips and pointers. And it just gives you some blank graphs, but we don't want to look at that right now. And when I give students a data set in CODAP, what I'm doing primarily is I'm showing them, I'm modeling for them the steps of the investigation process. Now you can choose how messy or clean you'd like the data. I usually take this time to like show how I haven't deleted cases where there's missing attributes because we deal with missing data in a very specific way. And even if you don't want to get into how we should do it, it's important that they know that like deleting data can actually lead to some pretty serious ethical concerns and definitely errors in statistical analysis. The other thing that CODAP does is you can drag and drop attributes to like filter. So for example, we are Montana. Oh my, Montana, you have no roller coasters or you have none in this data set. That's
I don't think we have any roller coasters, period, in the state.
okay. Well, then we'll do Colorado because that's where I'm from. Okay, so Colorado, it gave us two different, one from a lakeside amusement park, and then one from the Six Flags that's there. So you can do those, but if you don't want to filter, you can also just drag and drop. I'm going to drop it. No, maybe I'll drop it by the park. And then it just looks like a regular data set. I'll take the time to talk about like categorical and qualitative data when I'm looking at this and how it's so important for an investigation. And if you're really wanting to get insights from data, to have both, right? Like just because we're in a math class doesn't mean that the only thing that we should see in a data set is numbers. We should definitely be seeing words. And then the nice thing about CodeApp is just the ease of visualization. So you can do a bunch of things within the table. But really, so cool is you can click the graph, it pops open, really nothing, just random data points. But you can talk about, okay, I usually open it up to students. Maybe for this one, I'd say like, when you look at the information that I've curated about roller coasters, what's one thing that would be like something you want to investigate further? Oh my gosh, we're running out of time. So you can say top speed is typically one that I would get. And you're like, yeah, they care about how fast these things go. And then the wonderful thing about CodeApp is that it cross tabulates. So like if I only care about roller coasters that go greater than 60 miles per hour, I can highlight it and it highlights it in my data set in the table itself. Or let's say I think that type probably plays into the speed. You can drag type and now it color codes it for you, right? It'll say, okay, well, steel, pretty unsurprisingly, has these kind of high outliers of going fast. And the wooden ones are a little bit slower on average. You can start like making these conclusions and walking them through it. You can say, okay, I don't care about the type anymore. I think it's the age group. Like, oh, okay, yeah. Older ones, top speed maybe around 65, 70, and they go a little bit further. The other thing before we go back into the group, because holy smokes, that went quick. CodeApp has plugins for getting data that aren't just these. So if you care about, like any data that is on, they've partnered with NASA, so they have NASA data sets or NOAA weather data sets or the NHANES portal and talking about like census data and people demographics. You can click through those. So for example, I'll just click the NOAA one for a quick moment and you can enter in, I'm going to enter one by where I'm currently at, Durango, Colorado, and you can put in a date, start date, end date, sure. And you can tell it you want daily and it'll give you all of these attributes and you can just say get data and it will pull up that data from that weather site station. So it's really fun way for you to like kind of bring data into your classroom. In terms of like math concepts, right? You can do calculations like the mean, median, mode. You can start looking at variations in spread. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like I just shoveled a lot down your throat, but please reach out to me if you have any questions or you want to dig into these tools any deeper. I also am going to start hosting office hours as a part of DS4E, so you can always come to my office hours and we can walk through doing a lesson together if you're interested in implementing one of these tools. And yeah, I guess I'm going to now let us go back to the main room to close out.
There we go. All right, let's see. Let's see. Let's see. All right.
I think we're all set, Mahmood.
Yes, I'll do it. I'll start. Unskip. Unskip. Let's do unskip. And go back here. So, hey, is it Juvie or Jovi?
It's Juvie.
Juvie. All right, Juvie.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, what's up? How you doing? Listen, Juvie, you gotta hang in there with me. You ready? Because I'm gonna show you something that. No, listen.
Yeah.
No, Juvie, answer this. Have you ever seen this thing called Kodak?
Yeah.
You have? You've seen it?
Um,
No, don't worry about it if you haven't seen it. I'm gonna show you something that's gonna change your life. All right,
okay.
you ready?
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm gonna change your life. You don't even have to say thank you. It's cool. It's what I do. All right. So here we go. So CodeApp, in my experience, is the best kept academic secret on earth. This program was developed by some researchers at the Concord Consortium. It is free, it is online. There are no data being collected when students use it. You do not have to have a login to access it. And it is a what we call a low code tool, meaning you don't have to learn a programming language to use it. Code Common Online Data Analysis Platform. And so this particular platform can be used in a variety of math classes. It also has the ability to visualize maps, so it could be used in humanities classes, social studies, or even history. And it also has the ability to do things like statistical modeling, and you can also do things like simulation. But for us, we're just going to play around with a little bit of it, and we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. But before we do that, once this session is done, one thing that I would encourage you to do is to go back to this particular website, and all you have to do is search for CodeApp and click the first link. This is the front page. Uh, Click on where it says Get Started with CodeApp, and what that'll do, it'll take you through about 4 little mini lessons that are about 45 minutes each in length, and it'll get you started with some of the basic, most used and useful features of the platform. Once you've done that, you can then explore example documents. What that is are documents that other instructors or instructional designers or people who work with CodeApp have made around specific lessons. And if you're really jazzed about it, then you can join the community of other practitioners in math and science who use CodeApp in their instruction. So without further ado, let's explore CodeApp. But to do that, this is the first thing that I want you to do is if you go to this link. Uh, Go to type this link in, and then I'll share my screen and show you what it says. I never remember to shorten these things.
It's okay. I can't seem to understand a P as a P, and I kept wanting to put 9.
Yeah, I can. So I'm gonna stop making this one so bold. Then, Juvie, when you click that link, is this what you see?
I'm sorry, I cannot open it because I'm just using my phone right now.
Oh, okay, okay.
I just had came from school, so I'm on my way
Oh, you're not
to.
driving, are you? No, don't do it. Don't.
That's okay.
No, don't drive and text. All right. So this is a data set about one of my favorite animals, the penguin. Have you seen the movie Penguins? They're like these cute little animals, and they huddle together when it's like the frozen tundra. And they're very resilient little animals. They're very they have this journey that they have to make across these really rough conditions, and these data actually come from a research paper that was done by these particular researchers in 2014. So, not that you would necessarily have your students read the actual research paper, but it's good to show the connection between something that's actually real and the things that you're doing in class. So, this is what we would call a data sheet, and many of the things that are many of the features that were collected about these different types of penguins are contained in these variables. So things like their species, what island they were from, the length and depth of their bills, the flipper length, their body mass. It also contains units. The penguins were also identified as whether they were male or females and the year that this was collected. And some of the other citations where people have used this data are in these particular papers here, where people studied one particular species of these penguins. All right. So the beauty of CODAP is that you can set up CODAP so that all you have to do is share the link with your students. So if I go here to this link, and do this for 6 NK 2J, 2 capital J. There we go. Something's wrong. 4 6 N KJ little j 2 capital J.
I put it in the chat too, Mahmoud.
Oh, see, Sam, you're so smart. Thank you. Yeah, because I typed it wrong again, and it still didn't work. There
That
we
was
go.
me last time.
Yeah, here we go. Yes. All right. So I'm gonna put this one on the screen. And so the first thing I want you to notice is that because this is sort of a session to kind of raise awareness about what CodeApp can do and what it is, I didn't go through the process of how you would get the data in it. But when you share this link with your students, automatically they get the data that comes with it. So you don't have to worry about transferring files, managing files. Everybody gets the same thing. And regardless of the device that they're on, tablet, Chromebook, laptop, Mac, Windows, Linux, they all get the same data so that you can ensure consistency and reproducibility across the student. And so here, what I'm gonna do is just look at one particular feature. So Jivy, what classes do you teach?
I am teaching 9 to 12 grade.
Is math or is it science? Which one is it?
Yeah, it is math from 9th grade to 12th grade.
Okay, perfect. So uh, I'm only going to deal with one single button on this particular activity. Notice there are other buttons along the top here. We're only going to focus on one. And the one that we're going to focus on is the graph button. So when I click graph, I get a blank canvas that I can resize. And within this canvas, what I can do is drag and drop the features that I want to see from the data set that I'm working with. So here, one thing I may be curious about is what is the frequency of the different species? So I would go to the species column, click it, and drag it to the x-axis, and I get a dot plot that gives me the counts of the different species. So just like Hannah was talking about in her presentation, I already have some sort of questions like if I see any trends in this data, is it going to be applicable to all 3 different species? Like this particular species has a higher frequency count. Is this species going to sort of overwhelm my analysis and make me think about generalizations that aren't transferable across the 3? And with CODAP, when you're thinking about visualizing these features, one thing that's really neat is that I can have multiple graphs on the same page. So now I can see how things interact between variables. So maybe the thing that I'm interested in is the body mass. Like how big are these penguins? So I can take the body mass and drop it on the x-axis. And notice it gives me these numbers here. And what I do is sometimes I build in like little things to make students think. This might not be the visualization I expected. I might have expected something that looks more like a histogram. But why am I not getting a histogram? I'm getting something that looks like a dot plot. So I can click on the variable name. And as I scroll down the list of variables, I notice it's not treating it as a number. It's treating it as some kind of category. Well, that's not what I want. I want to treat it as a number. So now I get the visualization that I'm looking for.
That's
Things
really neat, Mahmood, because I don't know if students would have automatically thought like, oh, the classification of the data, because they see the number, but they don't realize like, oh, it needs to be treated as a number, right?
exactly. And so I think, how can I say this? Building in sort of little tiny gotchas about things that you really want them to notice and learn is helpful. Because if I leave it like it was, and then I ask the next question, like, how does the body mass kind of spread out across the different penguins? Like, what's like the range of weights that's like most typical? It's really hard to answer that question here. Like, maybe you could say other. Other is not a weight. Like, it's really hard to answer that question with it like this. And I may let them productively struggle over this for 5 to 7 minutes before showing them that it's numeric. And this also highlights the learning progression because in grades 6 to 8, they should understand that when I visualize a single numeric variable, I'm expecting something like a histogram or a box plot. And when I don't get that, it should trigger in me some sort of thought as to whether or not this is correct. All right, so now I look, I may have students think, okay, well, what's kind of like a typical weight? Seems like somewhere between 1,500 and maybe 5,000, but it seems like there's a peak here. And then over here to the far right, it seems like it's another sort of peak. So it's kind of like you got two like normal looking curves in one visualization. Again, in instruction, when I pose questions, I'm not necessarily wanting students to answer them right then. I'm posing them in a way to get them to sort of think that posing questions without answering them on the spot is a totally acceptable thing to do. So we might say something like, oh, well, let's not forget our question. So let's write our question down on a separate page in our notebook, or let's write it somewhere on a whiteboard. So once we learn more, maybe we can come back and answer it, which again is a totally acceptable analysis plan. And it builds in them this persistence and this idea of iteration. So now I might think, well, if I click the smallest penguin, I notice that it shows up in the chin strap penguin bar. or the dots. So then maybe I think, are all chin strap penguins really small? Or was just this one really small? I might do the same thing for the large. Oh, the Gentoo penguin was pretty large. Are all Gentoo penguins really large? Or was just this one really large? And so then I would have them think about like things that we know, like human beings. Human beings come in all different sizes and shapes. Like Victor Wembanyama from the San Antonio Spurs is 7'5". Not many people on earth are 7'5". Angel Reese in the WNBA is a woman who's 6'6". Like not many women walking around earth are 6'6". So now I'm like, well, let's kind of see what these chin strap penguins are in this body mass. Oh, seems like they're kind of all over the place. So maybe this one was an unusually small penguin. Well, what about the Gentoo? So to unhighlight, I just click anywhere on this graph. I highlight all of these. Well, it does seem like the Gentoo penguins are kind of big. Look at there. What's up? Notice that the Gentoo penguins kind of follow this pattern here. Well, maybe I want to compare across the species. When I look at this, I'm highlighting one species and everything else. So it's hard for me to say Gentoo and chinstrap. It's like Gentoo and everything else. So if I click anywhere on the graph and I go back to, last thing I'll show you is species. And instead of putting it on the x-axis, I put it on the y-axis. Now I can compare across the species. And it appears that the Gentoo are a little bit bigger than the other two. The chinstrap and the Adele seem to have sort of a similar type of distribution. Although this chinstrap has like one of the smaller ones and one of the larger ones in comparison to the other penguin species here. And so then I might think, well, it's kind of hard to grab a penguin and weigh it. Right, if there's a whole morass of penguins out there, it's kind of hard to grab one and then weigh it and then put it back and they're not going to line up for me and get on the scale. So then I might think about, is there a way that if I had a picture of all the penguins, could I measure a particular part of their body and predict within some kind of range their weight? Questioning is key to building curiosity, which is key to sort of self-motivating students to persist in iteration to answer questions. And this is just a brief demo of the things that you can do in your class with the accessible data set that students can wrap their minds around about penguins and talk about things that they have some sort of connection to in terms of understanding sizes of penguins, weights, and different species. And I think our room is going to close in 20 seconds. But if you're using this tool and you ever have any questions, you can always send me a message and I'll help you out.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was just
Is
gonna
that why
say,
you pointed,
I
Katrina?
got so excited. I was like, oh, native
Native
teachers
Games.
could totally partner to create something like that. Now my brain is operating at 100 miles. Thanks, Hannah. That was great. Now I have a billion ideas.
I'm the same way after Book Moods. It sounds like all of our breakout groups went successfully. Does it seem like everyone's back? Okay. Hannah, do you want to lead the share out?
Yes, would love to. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna put a couple people on the spot here, but K5 group, hopefully it was really exciting in there with everything that Christina had to show y'all. Anyone brave enough to give like a key takeaway of something that made them excited about something they could put in their classroom this next week?
Our group was really excited about Charty Party. We thought it would be really fun and get kids talking in the classroom. And then we kind of went on a tangent about like how could we get them for schools across the state.
Yeah, so that was in our middle school breakout session. There is a very fun card game, very similar to Apples, but it instead deals with graphs and visualizations. We're thinking of creating a statewide initiative of, just like Apples to Apples has, expanded decks, we're now doing expanded decks for Charty Party. So that was a good share out from the middle school. What about high school? Do you guys have anything?
I don't, okay, as a previous math teacher in high school, I have no coding experience whatsoever. And I think that's one of the biggest fears I have for like data science education, right? And so Mahmoud highlighted this tool that's called Code App. And our students, just because they've grown up with touch screens and technology, their intuition is just to click and drag and do all sorts of things. And so Codeap kind of builds on that intuition of like, what if I drag this to this graph and what can I look at and how do I organize? And I think it just matches with our students' natural utilization and exploration of tech. And it really was nice that it was so low code as a program to really build confidence. So I was just super excited about that. Also, it was around penguins, is what Mahmoud was sharing about. And I was like, I love penguins. So super excited about that.
Great. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I guess, kind of bring us together with a little bit of a challenge of, these tools do require like some base knowledge that we have to build at a foundational level. I think what's really inspiring to me when I look through the slides from the kindergarten, elementary, through the middle school, through the high school, is that a lot of the tools that we provided and showed today really center around giving students voice. And I think that's a really important like part of data science education that might not be like highlighted quite as overtly, but is really important in terms of practice, right? Like we're talking about analyzing data, we're talking about insights, we're talking about visualizations, but really it's meeting them where they're at and then showing them how to communicate those things, right? And so I think that it's really cool to see like the deer data, art illustrations from the elementary space kind of morph into, the gamified version in middle school and like the CodeApp drag and drop visualizations, and then really equipping them to like kind of take off and run with it in the future. So I really appreciate everyone for, being brave in the breakout rooms. Remember, like, if we don't model kind of taking a chance and saying something silly, then our students won't feel comfortable doing it. So really appreciate everyone's participation in the breakout rooms. And I think we have just a few announcements before we close out.
Sam, you're
Forgot
on
where
mute.
the mute button was. Just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to sign up for our next session, which will be on October 14th. It's going to be about assessing data skills and analyzing your assessment results. If you guys want to sign up here with this QR code, otherwise the registration link is also available on the Montana's website. And then also linked in the chat. Thank you, Katrina, for putting that in. Next slide. I know we have just a few more minutes. I want to kind of provide a few different links really quick and then give the last few minutes of any questions and answers people wanted. But to access the recordings of previous or even the slide decks, please feel free to go to the Montana OPI's math page. Again, the registration link is there, but there is a short URL here available as well. If you have any questions after these webinars, please feel free to contact Montana OPI, and we'll try and answer those as quickly as we can. But does anybody have questions after today's session? I'm super excited about the tools that were presented. I don't know about everybody else.
It made me want to be back in the classroom, if that's any indication. It was wonderful to, and it just seems like a super easy way to make this accessible, especially to the little kids in elementary. So thank you for that.
Love that.
Eva, we're not going to allow you to go back to the classroom, so you won't be talking like that anymore. Thank you very much. And I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. This is just such a different space for myself to be in. So I really appreciate all the different ways that you're providing these options. And I'm not sure who was sharing the slides, but I just want to say, wow, tremendous job. Incredible job sharing those slides. Thanks, you guys.
Shout out to Mahmood. Great job on doing that. Just wanted to provide some additional resources. If there are any educators here that just want kind of a coaching or virtual office hour, Hannah does provide that. And she shared the link for that as well. And then next slide. Oh, no, this is perfect. This is the slide I want to be on. And then also just a reminder to get your CPDU credits to complete the evaluation form. There is a QR code available here. And Katrina also linked it into the chat. And if you guys have any further questions, please feel free to ask them, but we'll stay on until about, is it 7 p.m. there? No, 5 p.m. there, Mountain Time. Oh, so happy that you love these resources.
Thanks so much. Great job.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone.